Okay, and thank you for joining another episode of Profit from the Pod. I am so excited to talk to Colin Sheehan. Colin, you have such a extended background of television media. I'm just going to read off a couple of the things that I found out about you, and you can tell me if I'm right. So you've been in the television media for over 20 years, and you are a two-time regional Emmy winner with Nesson.
Yes.
You have a lifelong passion for horse racing. You're a creator of not one, but two successful YouTube channels. You have Trust the Profits, which I believe you started in 19. You have over 17,000 subscribers. And then you recently started Doubling Down, and that is just within this year. Is that correct?
Yes. I joined Trust the Profits. They had their own channel going, and that's where they invited me to come on and make some content for them because, as you know, the wheel of getting content out can be difficult for a small group. And they saw some videos that I had posted on my X and asked me if I wanted to come and be a part of their channel. And that's kind of what kicked off my endeavor into the world of being out there publicly doing podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, after being with Trust the Profits for I think 3 years, I just had that point where I realized I'm going to be doing this for a long time. I love it. I love talking horses. I love using my television background to come up with ideas of how to present material to guests, to viewers. And if you think of it as the long game, that's when I realized if I'm going to start, you kind of have to take that first step. And so this year in January, we decided, and I had the pressure of knowing the Triple Crown was coming because I know in horse racing, everyone's focused on the Kentucky
Yes.
Derby.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the decision rather quickly. Really, I probably maybe should have thought about it a little bit longer, but once you make that decision, there's no turning back. And we just had the Kentucky Derby happen. And I've been very happy with the results of Doubling Down since we started at the end of January.
So, how do you describe yourself today now that you are the creator of Doubling Down with Vinny? How do you tell people what you do besides from your day job?
Yeah, I try to make Doubling Down more than just a YouTube channel. That's my goal, and I have a ton of ideas of what that long game looks like. And so on the channel, we're going to continue to present to you the videos that you're used to getting on YouTube, whether it's in short format or long format, and give you tips on races and break down the horses. But part of why I've been so interested in horse racing is that it is a puzzle. And I am really good at puzzles. That's where my strength is at my day job. How do you figure out this problem? How do you figure out with most efficient that it can be
Mhm.
completed? And that's why I'm attracted to horse racing. My wife reads books. I read past performances to look at the puzzle. Even if I'm not betting on races, I'm more than happy to, if I didn't see what happened in today's races, I'll go through as if I didn't see it, which I didn't, and try and pick a winner. And then I can quickly look and see if I was right or wrong. And then, okay,
Interesting
let's
perspective.
do the next race and let's see if I was betting today, I would have picked this horse. And then in 2 seconds I can look and say, oh, I was wrong. Why was I wrong? And I could literally do that till the cows come home and be so content. I could go on a vacation, sit on a beach with past performances and dig into the data. And over the course of the last 8 months, maybe, as I've delved into how to utilize things such as Claude or ChatGPT and start to expand my brain of ways to use data and use the tools that are out there and maybe try to come up with data driven analytics, because as a human I have biases. I see a horse that I loved 10 years ago, and if he's the sire or father of this horse,
Hmm.
I may automatically be intrigued and have a bias towards that horse. Well, data doesn't allow you to have that bias. It tells you, black and white. So one thing I've tried to incorporate into the channel is some data driven rankings where you can come to our channel and see what the computer has come up with. It's based on what I think the best. I focus on speed and pace and class of horses, and I've put that into my model and it spits it out. And if people want to just come who don't know horse racing and look at the rankings, we have that. We've, along with my co-host Vinny, started a game. So we came up with the name Doubling Down because in horse racing there's a daily double where you have to hit 2 races in a row. And I always thought that that was a good place for beginners to learn horse racing. Yes, you win tons of money by hitting pick fives, but pick fives are so hard to put together, which is picking 5 horses in a row.
It's not
Let's
it's
start.
not too different from a parlay in regular betting, right?
Exactly, yes, you have to hit 5 in a row. Well, let's start with 2, and it's called the Daily Double, and that's how the me and Vinny's show originally started on Trust the Profits, was doubling down, and I've come up with a way to build an app where viewers can come in and play what their daily double is against me and Vinny, and we have a leaderboard, and there's headlines in there that we update, and that was another challenge for my brain of how do I build an app that does the math of what people are picking and does a leaderboard, and that was another period of time, right? So we started to put these things together. So now we have an app. You can play along with us. You can come and get rankings. You can come and watch the content of the channel. We recently launched a newsletter because every Saturday I was sending a reminder to get your picks in, right? I want to remind the people that are in the app that they have to get their picks in today by whatever the time was. Well, the email was me, it was like as if you were getting one from my work email. Hello, don't forget to get your picks in. And then that spurred in my brain, let's use this real estate to present something better to the folks. And we put the rankings in the email. We've now have some deals. If you're a cigar smoker, we've come up with some affiliate marketing and a spot to put that in. And now there's an ecosystem that I am really excited about create. And that has been my early 40s midlife crisis of how can I keep my brain going and what else can we bring? I have grand ideas of horse players are created by going to the track and experiencing what it's like to watch the races live. Vinny lives in Saratoga. I'm in Boston, and Saratoga is 3 hours from me, and that's the closest place that I like to go right now every summer. What if we do a bus leaving Boston with doubling down, and we'll bring you to Saratoga and we'll show you how to get a picnic table and where you want to sit and have a little handicapping session. And the community of horse players is when you find someone that likes horse racing, you have an instant connection. And how can we create more of that as the sport starts to fade out of, as you mentioned, parlays? Sports betting has really been a detriment to horse racing. Horse racing has also been a detriment to horse racing, but we can save that for another day. And what does that look like? And maybe that is something else that's added into the mix. So the creativity hasn't stopped since I've started doubling down, because there was a pressure at that point to want to get the content out, to want to get these things so that people come to the channel. When you're doing it for another channel, you kind of maybe lose a little bit of that passion. And I think that's kind of what was happening with my time with Trust to Profits. And I love those guys. If anybody's out there and wants to follow them, they do a great job too. It's just time for me to kind of try it on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're your own guy now, and you get to be the whole creative engine for your new endeavor. And I like the idea that you're always thinking. That was going to be one of my questions, because I find myself as a content creator, you have to get into that mode where you're always thinking, how can I make my channel better? What do people want to see? And I've always thought that I was a little bit creative, but then when I became a teacher, I realized that I had to be creative every single day, or I was going to lose my kids because they just heard the same thing over and over and over again. And I remember when I was a kid, I heard the same thing over and over again, and I was bored. I didn't want to be that guy. So I always had to be creative. And I'm always thinking now, what could I do? What do people want? And like you said, with the AI perspective, I actually ask AI, what are the trends on YouTube for what I might be presenting? And I can go from there, but I can make it my own. Because I think that's the issue with AI. It's going to be like you said, it's only data driven. People don't want to just see the data. They want to see your face with your inflection talking about the data. And that makes a lot of sense of what you said about getting the bus. Now, that's not the first time I've heard something like that. I can remember going to, I hope I'm not going to hurt your feelings. I'm a big New York Giants fan.
Okay.
When I went down to the stadium, I would always see these buses going from different communities, and they would do everything together. Take the bus, tailgate, walk in, sit, enjoy the game, come back out. There's a lot of things that's happening, just like you said. And if you can think about taking one of those things and maybe monetizing it, or being creative off of that, I think it really works because it makes you more human. And I think that is your specialty, being a content creator, is that you get to put yourself into the mix, right?
Absolutely.
So I really like to go to horse racing. I haven't been to many races, but the ones that I've been to were really fun. I lived in Baltimore for a while, so you know that I had to go to the Preakness infield once
Yep. Me too.
before children. And I don't know, Well, I went in the early 90s, and it was different than it is today. There wasn't any corporate sponsors in the infield. It was just people having a really good time. So that was a good time for me. And then as it progressed, of course I watched the first two races of the Triple Crown. I don't know why I'm not into the race in Saratoga, but I really do like the Kentucky Derby, because I really think that signifies spring is here.
Mm-hmm.
people want to
Yeah.
see people want to see the horses. And because I lived in Baltimore, the whole week and a half leading up to the Preakness was awesome. I can remember driving to work and seeing balloons and floats and everything. It was really interesting. So I could see how that really is interesting to you. But can you bring me back to when you were younger? I know you said you have a passion, a lifelong passion, but do you remember one specific time that you knew that, hey, I am totally passionate about horses and handicapping?
My first memory, 1993 Kentucky Derby winner Strike the Gold. I remember being in the basement with my dad. My dad was a big horse racing fan. That's how a lot of players get into it. That's how I got
Mm-hmm.
into it. My dad was on the grounds crew at Fenway Park, and the head's ground crew, Joe Mooney, was a big horse player who would go up to Saratoga with Don Zimmer and some of the players. And my dad
Mm-hmm.
would tag along, and he had some great stories he would tell me about. And then we would see Joe over at Suffolk Downs. And I remember 1993 watching that in the basement with my dad when he said pick a horse, and I picked Strike the Gold, and Strike the Gold won. And just a vivid, one of the earliest memories of me.
Mm-hmm.
So did that at that moment dictate to me I was going to be a lifelong horse racing fan? No. But as time has gone on, it became baseball and horse racing are kind of the things that me and my dad connected with. So annual trips up to Saratoga every single summer since I was 15. I went to a Preakness. I only had, the only had like one friend who was a horse racing fan, so it was hard. And that's why in starting to do this, that friendship has expanded to a lot of people. I've met a lot of friends just through doing the podcasts that are horse racing fans. And back in 5, 6, 7-ish, I actually had I wish I could go back. This is one thing I regret, is going back and telling myself I had started a little radio show on the internet. Me and my friend, I had an apartment. We'd go up and we would just talk to what we thought was nobody. We were just sitting in our rooms and like, let's talk about the horses. And it's on this internet site that was internet radio basically. And I remember on maybe episode 3 or 4, my roommates were having a party, and we said, we're going to go upstairs and do our little horse racing show. Why don't one of you guys call in and pretend you're a caller, and we'll have that on the record, and it'll look like people are actually paying attention, because you would get the record and then I'd post it on some website that we had. So up we go, and the party's going on downstairs, and we're talking, and you had the little panel and the light lit up, and I said, okay, it must be our friends, but hey, we finally have our first caller. And I clicked the button and quickly realized it was an actual caller from New York who was living down by Aqueduct, and said, hey, I love listening to you guys. I've heard the first 2 shows and blah, 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 blah. So I remember me and my friend looking at each other going, oh my God, someone
That's
is
got to make you
actually
feel
listening.
great.
So we hang up with him. The light turns on again, and I'm like, well, this must be my buddy. And it was another real caller. And the moment that happened, I remember after that show, we came downstairs, and everyone at the party was so pumped up. They're like, we didn't even have to call. You had real callers, and we decided we weren't going to call in. And we didn't do many shows after that. I mean, the schedules got in the way and work got in the way, and it kind of fell off the wayside from there. But looking back and realizing now what anybody can do as far as making a podcast or making a production, I really wish that I had combined what I was learning in my day job with what I had as a vision, but just couldn't put my finger on it actually being a vision. It was kind of just something fun to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could go back, and I think in that moment, I watched all of the horse races back then, and it's just always been something that's in the background of my life. There was a gap when I met my wife and we got married, and the 13 to the 20s kind of horse racing was not really at the forefront. And then COVID hit, and it was the only sport around. And so that would be the next regret, was I wish I had done this 5 years ago, or I wish I had it going at that point, because I really felt like, while I'm proud of what we've done in the last 3 months, I think about the lost years and what that could have looked like. And so, that's maybe a lesson of just do it, take that first step.
Yeah.
As nervous as you are, and I'm still nervous, still not confident about what I'm doing. I think that's a huge part of it too, is how much confidence do you need to feel successful, or how much do you have to feel successful? I don't think you'll ever have it. So just do it.
I agree with that. You know, when you go back to being nervous, I used to tell my students, they said, I'm really, really nervous about this test. And I said, I'm glad you're nervous because I know you're taking it seriously. Now, you could be nervous because you didn't study, or you could be nervous because you really want to do well, and that's yours. You want to make sure you're doing well. You want to make sure you have all the tools. So I don't think having that emotion is wrong for content creators. I think that could be a driving force as well. So we talked a little bit about the reasons why you started your new channel, but how did your work or how did your life look before you started with Trust the Profit and Doubling Down? Were you really into your career, or were you actually thinking about some things that you could do on your own apart from Nesson?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking at all. I was really into my career. Wanted to be the best manager I could be, wanted to learn as much as I could about the technology. One thing about working at Nesson is that we were the first regional sports network to go to 4K. Back when I started, we were the first regional sports network to go to HD. And with that comes so much learning through the technology. And what happened was Massachusetts passed the law to legalize gambling. And because of that, there was an influx of advertising dollars. And we started a gambling show at Nesson. And the host was Sammy Paniotovich, Sammy P, who has Chicken Dinner podcast. And we had been doing it a few months, and he knew me as the ops manager that fixed things, but he also knew that I had an interest in horse racing. And he had said to me, do you want to come on my show and talk horses? And I said, I don't know that I'll be comfortable doing that, because I had it in my mind that I had to give winners. And I credit Sammy P, who said, you don't have to give winners. You just have to give information and have fun with it. And he had me on that Kentucky Derby year. He had me on his show as his guest, and that sparked it. That kind of sparked that moment of, I don't have to pick the winners. And from there, I asked Nesson if I could record something in the studio in front of the monitor, because I thought that would be unique from what I was seeing on X at the time. Mm-hmm. And I did a Steve Kornacki style breakdown of the horses that were running in the Kentucky Derby, and I tweeted it out, and it, for me, went viral at the time. Steve Kornacki actually commented on it and got a really, really great response. And that's actually how the Trust the Profit saw me, was that one clip that I had made. But nothing was in my mind as far as me. If you asked me prior to me doing that podcast, I would have said, you're crazy. I never want to be publicly out there with picks or talking horses, because of that confidence that I don't have.
Right. Well, is that because do you consider yourself an introvert?
No, I don't. I don't think it's it's more about the confidence in what I'm talking about when it comes to horse racing, because there are so many extremely knowledgeable people who have been following the game way longer than I have and have so much experience. Mm-hmm. There was a blockage there, thinking that I had to bring something unique or special, and I didn't. I just had to be myself. And, credit to Sammy P all the way, because he's the one that lit that fire. And once that started, there's been no turning back. It's been, you said, do I think about creating content all the time? I'm a technical mind. My mind thinks technically, and how do I solve problems technically, and the puzzles. In the last, I'd say, year, I know there's going to come a wave of creativity for me over the course of, I'd say every 3 to 4 weeks, I'll have 2 to 3 days where my brain just starts idea. How do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? I've had anxiety over not having those ideas and not putting out content. You're like, oh no, the channel's not, I haven't put something new out in a week. It's going to fail. Now I realize,
writer's block.
Exactly. Yeah. And now it's like, just wait. And what I try to do, like you said, you Google what are the trends on fill in the blank. I look at those trends now and I try to make it a horse racing story. And then how do I make that into content? And that helps, even if I'm not having those crazy creative moments. We did a blind ranking. Me and Vinny did a blind ranking of Kentucky Derby horses. And that came from looking at what was going viral on shorts and on TikTok. And that was basically, I'm going to give you 5 foods, but you don't know what they are, and you need to rank them. And so you don't know who's coming. And we had a lot of fun with that. And
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
That seems to be a trend. I've seen that, especially with music. Like
yes,
someone
exactly.
will stop. There's a guy on TikTok I see that asks people, I'm going to give you 5, let's say, Michael Jackson songs, and you have to blindly rank them 1 to 5. And at the end, they're like, I should have ranked that number 2 or something like that. And it keeps participation going because people are like, okay, where's this guy going to rank, Thriller, or, how that Michael Jackson song was so much better than that. It deserves to be number two. But you're right. I always think, and like I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I haven't put out a podcast in a few weeks because life gets in the way, Colin,
Yes, for
especially with the
sure.
family. You know what I mean? So like when someone asks me, like, I've been semi-retired for teaching for probably about a good 10 years, but I've always done things on the side. And people would say, oh, so, if, like I asked you, how do you describe yourself? Well, since March, I describe myself as a grandpa because I have like my first two grandkids, right?
Oh,
So life
congrats.
is, thank you. Life is always changing. And then with the podcast, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if you looked at one of my podcasts, it was like the top 5 reasons why I failed at podcasting. I'm like, I'm too old. I
Mhm.
don't look like the normal podcaster. And you know what? Like I turned it around and said, yeah, maybe there's not a lot of older guys and I don't have to look like that model person. And like you said, I don't have to be perfect. And listen, I'm okay with perfect. And being in a 4th, 5th grade classroom for those years, I realized that I wasn't always the smartest person in the room. All I
Yeah.
had to do was talk and they all listened to me. That's why I liked Liz. I loved teaching 4th and 5th grade because they still thought that I knew what I was talking about. You get into middle school and they're not like that anymore,
Yeah.
you know?
God forbid high school too. Wouldn't even want
Oh,
to. I'd be
I
too.
don't listen. I don't know. First of all, I don't know how the teachers could teach middle school and high school. And then when COVID hit and they did the remote learning, I don't know how.
Yeah, it's give
But
them a
I'm
lot of
glad I got
credit.
out when I did. I had a really good time. I got out before I got burned out. So I didn't want to be that teacher where I had that guy and he was terrible.
Yeah,
I didn't want
packing
to
it
I
in.
didn't want to have the kids hate any of the subjects I taught. So
Yeah,
it was pretty easy. When you started uh, the last the last YouTube channel, Doubling Down, do you think that went as expected or have you been changing on the fly?
it's gone much better than expected.
Congratulations.
I think for a few reasons. One is the timing. I knew that the Triple Crown was something we had to build up from. And I learned that with Trust the Profits that once you hit January, you have a window from January to right now where your curve is going to go this way. And how can we take advantage of that? And how can we make the most of it? So I think we did a pretty good job considering it's just me and Vinny of getting content out on a consistent basis. I was able to convince Nesson that we have a fast channel, which is free ad supported TV, what you can find on like Roku and Samsung. So it's not your primary Nesson channel, but we have other programming on there. And I convinced them, hey, I have this horse racing show. Would you be interested in putting it on Nesson Nation? And they said yes. And they said, we'll give you a Saturday morning time slot. So that forced me to not skip a week. And that was great pressure of like,
That's some
as much as I
motivation.
didn't want to do it, or there's some nights you're like, man, I really don't want to put the time in or put the work in. That's in the back of my mind of we have to do it for that. We'll find it, if you don't feel like doing it tonight, we'll do it at a different time. But that was great pressure to keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
As far as now that I have kind of a pretty good feel for what's working, what's not working, the channel is built around the show Doubling Down, which is our daily double show. And at least over the last few months, it's actually been one of our least performing pieces of content that we're putting out. And so that has me thinking, do we tweak the format of that show to match the other content that's being successful?
Mm-hmm.
Or do we continue down this path because that's tied into the app, right? So that's what players are playing along with. And we've been able to crowdsource prizes every month since September, which is another part of me that I would have never had to do before. I've never would have had to be a marketing or sales hat and try to, hey, would you mind giving me a prize and I'll promote your show? And
Mm-hmm.
that in and of itself is another component to having a podcast that you don't really think about until you're in it.
Right.
I
Because
don't
I
like
see that
asking
you
for things.
right, because I see, I don't know if it was on the last one. Did you put out one today or yesterday? Your podcast.
We had a podcast out last night, which is
Was it
done
about the coffee? Was that the
tremendous.
coffee replacement?
That was last month. Sure bet. Yes.
Sherbet
Sure bet.
coffee.
Yes.
So you said that you had to be the salesman. Did you approach the coffee producer or did they come see you?
I had reached out to them and just told them what I was doing. I had a previous relationship with them because we had brought them on with Trust the Profits. But it's an awkward, you're asking for something, but I have confidence that we are providing a value that at least is enough to allow them to send out a prize, and that's worked out great for us.
Right. When I was doing some research about Nessa Nation doesn't necessarily carry the sports, live sports, but I think it talks of the bio said it was broadcast across the nation. Is that true? So you
Yes.
have a national audience where
Yes.
Nesson might not be unless I'm watching a game and I have to listen to the Boston announcers for some reason. So I would be listening to Nesson and Nesson Nation, and I would get that from my Roku or a streamer, something just like that.
Exactly. Those streaming services have Nessa Nation on it. It's on Roku, Samsung TV. And yes, we can't air the games because of the rights that we have only in New England for Red Sox and Bruins.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a lot of live sports on there. That's how Nessa Nation has tried to make itself unique in airing, high school and local college games that we have. And then there was an opportunity because of the looking for fresh content, that they gave me a shot, which I was appreciative of that as well.
Yeah. Did you have contacts through work with Nessa Nation?
Yeah. It certainly helped.
Sure it does, but it's building a network. And I think that's a lot of times where the younger generation is always on this and they fail to realize how big of a play it is to be talking with people and to reach out and talk to them face to face. Or maybe, I don't know if you've maybe not met the people, but when I used to work for a Fortune 500 company, I used to have to depend on people that I didn't see every day, that I had to email back and forth. But it was a constant contact, where I think maybe today some of that is being lost because people would rather just sit on the phone and scroll rather than having conversations, kind of like we're doing right now.
Yes, absolutely.
We make
so many. We have a lot of internships come through Nesson. We have a lot of school groups come through and giving them tours, and it's become a lesson that I have been sure to include in my part of the presentation every time is go look me up on LinkedIn and friend me. And if you message me, don't be hurt if I can't get back to you right away because we have full-time jobs and we're busy. But I'm not going to forget you reaching out to me because you'd be surprised how many people don't. If we had a group of 20 kids come through and I say, hey, here's my LinkedIn, reach out to me, we'll keep in touch in the future, maybe 2 of them would. And those stand out to me. So that's a great lesson of having to have that conversation. And that's another great part of what we have going on is some of those great relationships I've built, both with those over at Sherbet Coffee. We have artist David Barista, who does incredible artwork of horse racing, really unique pieces that are awesome. He has some trading cards. I think I actually have one right here he sent me that he has made, and this is this month's prize. He's made a limited edition of the Breeders' Cup horses from last year.
Love it.
And so that he has there's only 4 sets that he made, and the winner of our contest this month will get one of those sets. So I'm so appreciative for him. And, it's those types of conversations. David's someone I've been talking to about horse racing in the background for months, if not maybe more than years. And that's what it leads to when you start having those conversations, right?
Sure. And is that the kind of conversation, or how did you meet Vinny to become co-host of the Doubling Down podcast?
Vinny was on doing some stuff on Trust the Profits as well. And like I said, he lives up in Saratoga. So once we had started doing some shows together, I said, let's meet when I come up to Saratoga. And we hit it off right away. We think alike, not about the horses, as far as just getting along. We get along really well.
Mm-hmm.
And he is one that, I decided let's take this show on the road and let's see what we can do together. Now we've talked probably every week for the last 3 years, so that's kind of, it's fun to look back and realize the path that we've grown from the beginning.
Right. Was he the first person that you asked to be a co-host with you? So you batted 1,000? Is what you're
for Doubling Down?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had been doing the show on Trust the Profits, and we had kind of decided just at the time in November, December, I had asked him, do you want to continue this show with me or do you want to end it and I'll go do my own thing? And he loves doing it with me. So we continued on together, and it's just been the 2 of us. As I mentioned, a long-term goal is to have more members of the team, ideally It could be positions that we pay for. That's the goal, is to have a content team that is all working in the same direction. But that's further down the line. I mean, that's for right now. We're in a good spot. We'll get through the Triple Crown, the Preaknesses this weekend. Then we have the Belmont. Then Saratoga will start up. And then I think at that point, we'll kind of take a little time to assess. Let's look at the first 6 months of the channel. What has worked? What hasn't worked? What do we change? What don't we change? And the channel is going to constantly be in a state of review, if that makes
Most
sense.
successful businesses do that. They have
Yeah.
to change,
Yeah.
especially with content creation, because what was killing it 3 or 4 months ago is old news tomorrow.
Yeah. Especially nowadays where things kind of turn over so quickly.
And the news cycle is really fast.
Exactly.
Really fast. And you have to keep up with it or you're going to be lost.
Yes.
So I think you have, is it over 700? Is it 725 subscribers?
We went over 700 yesterday. The video we put out has done like 60, I think, in today in and of itself. So we're closing in on 1,000, which is, we set milestones. The first one was 500, which at least from a YouTube standpoint unlocks some super chat and some monetization levels, which we're not delirious in thinking that that's going to be our path to quitting our day jobs. We do this for the fun of it, but in doing something, you have to have at least some sort of goal. And that was goal 1 was, let's try to get a prize for the game for every month. Goal 2 was, let's see if we can get to that 500 mark. And to be honest with you, I was thinking that was going to be a year, right? Like we started at the end of January. I said, maybe we'll get a little bump for Derby. Maybe that'll get us to 300 or 400 subscribers. To be at 725 or 730 4 months in is we're so excited and so ecstatic about the reception we've received. It's been a positive reception on all fronts. Absolutely. There's comments that as part of this game you have to realize you're going to get. And that was part of my learning at Trust the Profits, is like people can be really rude and really mean. And I'm all about positivity. Channel description is, you can say whatever you want in the community. You can have opinions about your horses, but we're here to be positive and we're here to talk about the love of the sport. I know there's a lot of things in the sport that you can go down that path and be negative about. Anybody that comes on my channel is going to have to abide by that. And that doesn't mean you can't have a strong opinion. That doesn't mean you can't be passionate about that opinion, but you will not be demeaning, rude, or negative in a way that is going to turn me off or turn the viewers off. And so Vinny thinks the same way. And I didn't even have to talk to him about that because I know that that's kind of the world we live in. But you do have to be ready for the comments that are going to say, these two guys are morons. Why are you listening to this channel? And we get it.
Well, you're going to get it because your predictions are either right or they're wrong. And if someone took your advice and didn't like that advice, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But you're in a tough position, but you knew that going ahead. You realize that there are going to be some haters. There's probably going to be some percentage of more haters because you're not always going to be right. Gosh, if you were,
I wouldn't be here.
But
we're wrong a lot more than we're right.
Yes, but as long as you can keep people listening, 60 subscribers for one video within 24 hours, the full length, or was it a short?
It was about 30 minutes.
30 minutes. So I knew, looking at the previous YouTube channel that you were working on, Trust the Profits, I ranked the top 20 videos and only 3 were longer than 5 minutes. The thumbnails are awesome, even going back to 2019, and the production is really good. I mean, professional. I was talking with my wife about it. She was in the entertainment business as well. She worked for the Discovery Channel. So I always listen to what she's talking about, talent and everything else. But that really blew me away. And when I first contacted you, I was very impressed with the amount of professionalism in your podcast, both the audio and the video. And I was like, these guys must spend hours on post-production. That's why when I asked you before we actually started, were you an editor? And then when you told me, no, that really wasn't my gig, I was like, you could have fooled me, It looks really good.
Well, I appreciate that. I come from a live TV background, and so that's how I create my content as much as I can. Even if it's something that looks like it's edited, I'm more comfortable passing it through. I can edit, I can take clips. If we make mistakes, I'll have to go in and piece them together. But to me, I'm just faster at thinking, how do I do this live? And then executing it
Well, you
in the
had to be.
live
That was your
compassion.
job. I mean, you were under
Yes,
immense
still
amount
is.
of pressure, right? The live aspect for it. I find myself doing a lot of research and then sometimes not making that research come to fruition. But I think one of the best things I did was I invested in a editing software that really helps me out because a lot of it is AI generated. Like when I go back to do post production on this, I hit a couple of buttons and it takes care of the work for me. I'm not a real a technical guy. So anything that this Riverside application can offer me is a big bonus because I knew I could never do what the production does for me for Riverside on my own. There's just no way. I love the technology. I think I've always been like that. I've never been afraid of technology because I might not be the smartest guy, but I always pride myself on knowing where I could get the information from somebody else or something else to make my job easier. And I remember what you were saying, your brain is always working, saying, how can I do this more efficiently and quicker?
Yeah. And those, I've had to find some of those same tools because I really didn't want to start a TikTok. I wasn't on it. I didn't want to be on it. And then I came across Opus Clip, which will do a really good job of basically automatically finding your best moments in your podcasts, adding the captions, which I know is so important for like YouTube Shorts.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was paying for this product, so why not utilize it to maybe try and build a TikTok audience? And we just started that maybe 6 to 8 weeks ago, and that again kicked off that creative mindset of what content looks like, and really happy that we had one of the shorts did 190,000 views. We've had 3 or 4 of
Congratulations.
them go over 70,000.
Wow.
And I'm starting to learn the difference in the audiences and utilizing that tool where again I can efficiently hit a button and have content that can go now on multiple places. So yes, we have the long form of the show, but now I have a YouTube short, which is a whole other audience, and those subscribers are also adding up in those little pieces that you clip off. And then figured why not just start the TikTok, and it's actually done pretty good as well. So, it's a age of discovery in a lot of different ways that I'm just having a lot of fun with.
That's awesome because one of the goals when I started my podcast, the first one was to have fun because without fun, everything is going to feel like a chore, right? It's going to feel like, so I've been having fun. I like to learn new aspects. Like I said, technology doesn't scare me. The more I can have technology do for me rather than me have to do it, I think that's really good. Economies of scale. Going back to the TikTok, do you have a way that you can take your subscribers on TikTok and have them have a way to subscribe to your YouTube channel?
Yeah, not
Other
easily.
than with the bio.
Yeah, that's the only way that I know of is you put the link in the bio and maybe you kind of hope that they come over, which is my play. I mean, hopefully maybe one or two of them see that and come on over. I was on the Prop Queen is someone who had me on Derby Week and asked me for a long shot, and I said Golden Tempo was the horse that was being overlooked, and she's got 100,000 followers on X and took that clip, and so that's the moment, right? You call the Derby winner, even though it wasn't my horse that I was on top. She asked the right question, I gave the right answer, and that content really, I saw the flow of influx from her onto my TikTok and my X channel as well. So those collaborations such as this one are things you always have to be open to as well, regardless of who the people are, right? She's not a horse player. She just does a gambling channel and said, it's Derby week, so I'll have you on. And it ended up being probably the biggest funnel of my traffic on all 3 platforms.
Right. So you're talking about platforms. You have YouTube, TikTok,
and my X account.
X account.
Yeah.
Which one is more successful right now? And it's not based on subs, would you say? Which one are you most proud of?
I am most proud of the YouTube because that's where the majority of the work goes. They all have a purpose. The purpose of X has been that building of that community, finding friends that I have now that I didn't have prior to that. TikTok is really just more of me at this point playing around and seeing what works. So you get motivated by having one of those video that does almost 200,000 views, and it's like, okay, what's next that I can find? And that video was me taking some footage of Dave Portnoy, who had a horse in the Kentucky Oaks, who was a beautiful gray horse who was taking a bath, and just kind of put some questions around it. Hey, did you know this is Dave Portnoy's horse? Hey, are you betting on Lovely Gray in the Oaks? Comment below. And the uniqueness of the footage that I got from Churchill Downs made that special.
And that footage, is that available to everybody, or you just knew where to get it?
I knew where to ask.
Right.
Which was
That's
also, yeah, and it was also, I knew where to ask because of what I know in the industry. I didn't use any connections in the industry. I just knew kind of what was out there and where to go. And I was proud that our channel had a lot of unique footage on the week of Derby, both training, interviews from trainers, and I think that also set us apart. I'm trying to make that connection for the Preakness, but I have not had as much success.
Interesting. We're talking about the Preakness. You must be pretty busy this week, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that this is the first time in 151 years that the Preakness is not going to be in Baltimore. It's going to be a little bit south of Baltimore in Laurel. Do you think that takes away from a little bit of the history and the uniqueness of that race?
Not really, because we know the reasoning is to upgrade what's happening over at Pimlico. And I think that there's precedent from the Belmont Park reconstruction that's been happening over the last few years. And the Belmont Stakes has moved to Saratoga. This will be the third and hopefully final year. It will be the final year that it's been moved to Saratoga. So I think that move that had already happened in the New York circuit probably takes away a little bit of what may feel like the luster that you're losing from being at Pimlico. It's just disappointing, although understandable, of why Golden Tempo is not running in the Preakness. I know that is what Baltimore really needs in order for the Preakness to be important, is that the Kentucky Derby winner comes and runs in the Preakness. And that's less, it's happening less and less as the sport changes, is how much the horses are running. And I think that that's going to have a bigger impact on the history of the race going forward than the move of 1 year to Laurel.
Right. Because we know it's coming back.
Yes.
It's just taking a hiatus for one running.
Yes.
Laurel is not too far away from Baltimore, but Pimlico has so much history. That part of Baltimore, the Pimlico section, is just known for the horse racing.
Yeah. Yes.
You touched upon AI a little bit, and I said that I'm not afraid of technology. Being an older person, there's a lot of conspiracy theories. AI is going to take all the jobs. A lot of people think about the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Terminator, about how the AI comes down. But for me, I'd like to get your perspective on AI and how you think it's going to change what you do on a daily basis.
At work?
No, for YouTube and your content
for
creation.
YouTube.
Because I'll just tell you what I use it for right now. Mainly, I use it to drive my thumbnails and creative ideas, because I would have no idea how to do all that in Canva, because that's like, well, just do it in Canva. I said, no, I'm going to do it in ChatGPT. And 5 minutes later, I've got one that like everybody's going, you did that? I said, well, I knew the prompts, So talk to me about AI and how you think it's going to change, and if you're a proponent or an opponent of AI.
Definitely proponent. For me personally, it does a great job of, I'm a fairly disorganized person. That's my weakness, is my organization and skills are not strong. And I have to-do lists. I have 7 different to-do lists, and I've got notes in one computer, and then I go to work and I take more notes on that computer, and then I write them on a sheet of paper, and it's like, oh, where did I keep all of that? What I use, Claude, I've become a big fan of Claude over ChatGPT, is the presentation that it can give me back of my own information. And so, for example, here's all my notes of what I think of the Kentucky Derby horses. Give me a sheet that a professional announcer of the horse race would use to have a quick reference of all that information. And that was something that I remember I did that last year, because I was like, I know all the information, but I have it everywhere. I made a little, like, if you think of like a play-by-play announcer, they have these cards that have all the numbers, and then they'll put all the different stats that are important for them. I was like, I want to do that for the horses. So that way, when I'm watching the Derby or talking about it, I can quickly reference and spur my memory on what it is, the thought that I want to get out. That was a pain in the neck. I did it in Keynote, and it looked awesome. I had all the horses positioned of this is going to be my early speed horses. So they go on the right, and here's the jockey and the trainer and their stats. And I had to look it all up. And then you have a horse scratch, or you have another horse come in, and suddenly I got to move all these boxes around. And it was literally hours of work that this year I said, here's all my notes. Give me a sheet that presents to me all the information for the horses. And I have something similar here, very nicely presented, that took 5 minutes to spit out exactly what would have taken me last year a lot longer.
Colin, because coming from another disorganized person, it makes us look organized.
Yes.
And it feels good, doesn't it?
It feels
like,
awesome.
Oh, this is what organized is, because my organization is in the next room, and that's my wife.
Yes, mine's upstairs.
That's how it works.
Yes.
Last question, because I don't want to keep you so long. If someone came up to you and said, hey, getting ready to start a YouTube channel, maybe an interview podcast or a content podcast, what three suggestions would you do on would you give them on where to start?
First would be, I said the lesson was I wish I started earlier, and I said just start. I would actually, prior to saying just start, which is maybe step 2, step 1 is to pause and write down what you want it to be.
Have a plan is what you're saying?
Yeah, have a vision of what is the content going to be. I have found that there has been so many times over the course of the last, let's say, 2 months, that I have wanted to jump on this microphone and talk about, let's say, the Bruins, or I've wanted to jump in and talk about what's going on with the Red Sox. Or
I'm sorry to hear about the Red Sox this year.
Yeah, I know they're struggling. I've had to have restraint to recognize that the YouTube algorithm, in my belief, is looking at the content that I'm putting out as far as a niche. And I think my channel is doing really well because we have landed on one very specific thing. And although it's very small, horse racing is a small sport in the grand scheme of the major sports, the algorithm knows exactly what my channel is about. And so I think that if you say, I'm just going to start a podcast and it's going to be about news or cooking, pause and maybe think, is there something a step below that is more specific that I think will help the channel have maybe at least quicker success in the beginning? I'm not a YouTube expert. I don't know that for sure. I'm just giving you what my hunch is in that we were very strategic in Vinny loves basketball. Vinny could talk all day about basketball. He could talk all day about football. He used to do a NFL picks show on the Trust the Profits. When you get to the Trust the Profits size and you got 15, 16,000 subscribers and you've been around for 5 years, I think the algorithm knows who you are and it's okay to maybe try that stuff. And new channel, don't do that. Let's just keep it to, we're only going to talk horse racing, and maybe in 3 years we can talk about the Patriots or whoever else, the Giants. So that would be rule 1.
But rule 1, the research that I've done, content creators with millions of viewers said exactly what you're saying. It's very important to have a niche and stick to it. So yeah, you're on it.
I'm on it.
So 1 was pause, 2 was just start.
Well, I'll make that 3 because I thought of something else for number 2.
Okay,
3
so
is
we're
just
not
start.
blind. We're not blind ranking.
We're not blind ranking,
Colin. Okay, all
no.
right.
2 is, I think you need to understand what it takes to be successful. You do want to invest in a good microphone. You do want to invest in a solid camera. You do want to think about the other ways your channel can grow, such as YouTube Shorts or such as a TikTok or and what works on those channels. And that includes the captioning, so that a lot of people don't turn up the volume when they're watching these shorts, and you need to be able to have the words going across. Do you know how to do that? And how much time is that going to take? What do your thumbnails? How are you going to create your thumbnails? What are they going to look like? AI is great, but I feel like it's becoming oversaturated, that everyone's relying on AI in certain areas, and thumbnails would absolutely be one that I can spot it from a mile away. And I did plenty of it because I'm not a very good graphics designer. I did spend money on having someone create my logo for me, which I was very happy about how it came out. But that was a conscious decision of, here's where I'm going to spend my money. And I think someone might want to do that. And that was over the course of time for me, because that could be expensive. I invested in vMix, a microphone, bought my logo, bought a really good camera. I bought a computer that can handle all the stuff that we want to do. We're going to go live for the first time this Thursday. We're really excited about that, but you need the right tools to do it. And if you buy all that up front, that could be expensive. So it could be a process of making sure you get a few things and cross them off the list one at a time. But I think you should cross some of those off the list before you just decide to launch, because if that first video looks really, really bad, or your first 10 videos look like they are not professional, in my opinion, it does kind of knock down some of that credibility that
Totally agree.
that first time somebody sees your channel could be the last time. And do they hit that button? Do they come back? So I would pause to also think about what it's going to take. Are you going to do all of this in post production? Because you're going to get into that hamster wheel that we have where we're always thinking about the channel. And if I'm not, I think of it like a pet that I'm not feeding. If I'm not putting something out, is my pet dying? And you want to prepare yourself that when you get into that moment, you either are efficient enough that you can feed it quickly, or you're okay, I'm going to take a whole ton of time on this, and that's how my channel is going to run. I think those are kind of crossroads that you want to think about before you jump into the fire.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, number 3 is do it.
Do it.
Don't worry about you as a commentator, or you as a speaker, or you how you look, or how people might comment. That stuff that you have to that's the part where you have to just do it, because you're going to waste so much time waiting on that stuff. You're going to buy the camera and the mic, and then you're going to sit there and go, am I ready? Or you record a few times and not post it.
Right.
Just do it.
Yeah. That's great advice. Those 3 are really good advice. I think a lot of people they're always looking to be perfect. And I've listened to a lot of content creators who said, I've made thousands of videos. I don't think one is perfect.
And the funny thing is I spent a whole ton of time on this idea I had of a video. I got Canva. I'm a big fan of Canva. I think there's some great tools in there. I paid for the premium version because there was B-roll, and I think that B-roll, they had some really cool, they had this awesome shot of a horse in a field on a morning, and the dew's coming up and he's breathing and you see the steam coming out, and it was February, so I felt the connection to it. And I found B-roll of the Kentucky flag waving, and the race was going to be in Kentucky, and I spent hours, nights working on this video and pressed send, and it just did nothing. And you're like, how does that happen? How do I see that as being the best thing I've done? Performance-wise is one of the lowest performers. I think there's also that caveat of you don't know what's really going to hit. So you just have to, that can be frustrating. And that has gotten me to the point of, I have 2 kids, I have a full-time job, I'm coaching baseball, I'm coaching hockey. I know that I have like an hour window each night from like 9:30 till I fall asleep, which if I'm in that creative mode is very late. And I'll pay for it the next day, but I don't want to stop those thoughts. But what I try to do is, I know tonight I only have this hour of time. How am I going to use that and not feel like I wasted it, or feel like I could have done something and I didn't? Or I just tell myself I'm not doing anything tonight and I'm okay with that. Because when you put all that time into it and then walk away and see that it got 100 views, and the video that you spent 5 minutes and you just did it on your phone because you saw something cool and it's crap, does 5,000 views and you get 20 subscribers, you're kind of like, okay, what's going on here?
Yes. And some of us, I know for me, I try not to compare myself to other people or other content creators, but I'll look at something on my reels and I think I could have done that better. I could do better than that. And then I look at how many views and how many likes and comments, and I'm like, oh my goodness, why can't I get a video like that? And then it makes me think, okay, flattery, I'm gonna copy something like that and see if it works for me. I'm gonna make it my own. But you never know. Sometimes you think, okay, this is awesome. This is gonna get me my viral videos. It's gonna get me many subs. And then the one you say, I just got to put something out just to say I put something out so the algorithm doesn't forget me. And then that takes off. You never know.
Yeah. And I don't know that I would say it's just get something out, but it's more of, I've come to realize that there's a moment where you have a feeling of, this could be pretty good content. For example, that Dave Portnoy video on that gray horse. I just saw the horse and it was a cool shot. And it was, how do I make that linkage? I know that on my shorts YouTube, it's the action that does the best. Video of a horse racing, but maybe the horse has a really cool name. Maybe the jockey fell off and something kind of unique happened. Those you just see. And in the past, you would just see it and be like, oh, that's cool. And then you'd scroll to the next video. I pause now and say, can I do that better? Is there another thing that I've seen that maybe I haven't seen out? Like I like last week I saw a race happen where it was a really close finish, and this horse that was 35-1 or something had won the race, maybe even more than that. And I hadn't seen it anywhere. So I quickly took that and I said, shocker, 35-1 horse wins. It was a no-name horse in a no-name track, but it was exciting and it was a long shot. And that thing took off just because you titled it right. And that was just that moment of pausing and saying, I haven't seen this anywhere yet, so let's put it up. Those moments are the ones you try to catch, because that can be the fire. And that only takes 5 minutes, as opposed to I'm going to think about this for 7 days. And I'm going to write a script, and I'm going to ask Claude to, give me critique on it. And I'm going to tell it to give me the best title. And those don't end up being, at least for me right now, the best use of my time. I have visions of what that could look like. If I'm going to do something that I put that much time into, it's going to be a little bit more documentary style. Let's go and do an interview with a trainer at the track. Let's set that up. That to me is where those longer form dedication of time could be more successful.
Right. It's all about what's trending. Just the last point, I wanted to get your thinking of the average YouTube watch hours are going down. Content creators like Mr. Beast, I think his viewership has gone down 25%. I mean, still he's got millions, right? So 25% of him is still big. Why do you think that the YouTube viewership is going down, but it seems that there's more content creators coming on, and only 10% of those content creators make more than 4 videos?
I think it's all relative. I think about, compare it to the ratings that Nesson had when the Red Sox were in their peak in 07, 04, 07, 10.
I remember those years.
Right. And the baseball viewership we were doing 16s and 17s locally in New England, which is unheard of. Viewership plummeted for a lot of reasons, mostly YouTube and the quick fix and the baseball being boring. And now you see baseball back up on the upswing, righting the ship in a way. Mr. Beast is down 10% for him is still a lot of hours. And how much new content can really be created? How many new ideas can there be is what I'm always thinking, which to me is why I love horse racing, is a content machine that is new storylines every single week, every single month, every single year. Like it's not going to run out of new horses and new ideas and new content. When you have those creators who are, to me, it's detrimental what they are doing to get the clicks. Some of that stuff I see is horrifying. And I'm like, oh my God, I could never imagine even putting myself in that position, to a point where people are putting themselves in danger. And I think that is something that as a society, we want to keep tabs on and not encourage if we can. The viewership is just constantly flowing, right? I cut the cable, then it became so much more expensive to have all the streaming apps, so I cut all my streaming apps and went back to cable, and now it's a mixture of cable with streaming apps. And Barstool, who's known for their videos on YouTube, are now part of Netflix, so I assume Netflix hours are going up. And then you take a thing like the UFC, which I used to always watch on Fox Sports, has now moved into Paramount, I believe. So the way content is moving in so many different places is, to me, just a more evidence of why viewership might drop on YouTube. Yeah. But I think it's just going to be an ebb and flow that will come back.
Sure.
Yeah.
I do believe that, because everybody's vying. Warner Brothers Discovery's vying to get something.
What's old is new.
Yes. It's all going to come around, right?
Yeah.
Hey, triple thank yous for you spending time with me tonight. I really do appreciate your time. I know you're really busy. It meant a lot to me. I learned a lot, and I just really want to thank you.